Thank you so much for that warm introduction. And thank you also for allowing me to come and speak to folks here at India Cloud Day about best practices around cloud migration. That was such a lovely and warm introduction. I almost feel like I don't deserve those accolades, but I will do my best to share some insights with you about cloud migrations and best approaches. I'm going to share my screen now. Could you please let me know if you can see it okay?
Yes, it is visible.
All right, fantastic. First test of the day is done, which is the technology is working. Now we're here today to talk about cloud migrations and the steps to think about as you do that migration. First, allow me to give you a very brief introduction to Apptio if you're not already familiar with us. Apptio provides a suite of software platforms for every aspect of IT financial management. Effectively, we act like a CRM for IT leaders, providing actionable insights that connect your tech investment decisions to better business outcomes. Now, Apptio provides 360-degree visibility into your on-prem spend and your agile and product investments and your cloud investments. So we have tools like Apptio One, which manages all of your IT spend, Target Process, which manages your agile investments, and the Cloudability product family, which will help manage your cloud spend, your cloud migrations, and your SaaS spend. Now, today is all focused on cloud migrations, how to harness value from those migrations and sustain it. To start, we're going to look a little bit at the history around cloud migrations and the use of cloud to help frame out the challenges of migrations. Now, in a traditional data center model, you had fixed costs based on CapEx, and typically you had lengthy procurement cycles. But in the 2000s, with the born in the web companies, you started to see a bit of a shift towards more flexible infrastructure, more flexible options. And what came out of that is in the 2000s, Amazon Web Services released their cloud server, so their infrastructure as a service called EC2. Now, this option allowed teams to move into more flexible infrastructure. And it happened at about the same time that teams started to move away from waterfall and project-led development to agile and product-led development. Now, today, I'm sure you've seen many different reports and information about this. The cloud economy is growing, it is already enormous, and the growth potential there is astronomical. And that's not just about changes to cost model or cost reduction. It's actually more focused on business agility and innovation as the reason that you would move to cloud. So recent Forrester studies have indicated that 75% of business leaders move to the cloud for better business agility. 74% of those IT leaders are moving for scalability. So it's clear it's not just about cost. Cloud services give you so many options to be agile, to scale, to be elastic, to use advanced technology. But what we're going to discuss today is that to really do that properly and harness the value, IT leaders need to collaborate with the rest of the business to help them make decisions around which clouds to use and which services to use, and to build governance policies, like we talked about in the previous panel just now, creating governance policies to do it well. Now, usually in groups like this, we have a little bit of everyone. We have some people who are new to cloud, and we have some tech companies that were born in the cloud and are cloud native. So I want to take another couple minutes to talk about the benefits of using cloud for those folks who are still relatively new to the process. And first, I just wanted to normalize where most organizations are at. Now, Gartner indicates that the vast majority of organizations are doing some work with cloud and will increasingly have a combination of on-prem, cloud, SaaS, co-location, edge technologies. It's going to all come together to serve the business. So I hope this normalizes for you. Organizations are already using cloud at scale and they are migrating quickly. So if you're not already using cloud, it's not a question of if you will use it, it's really about when you will use it and how you will use it. And the opportunities here are transformative for a business, but it can be very difficult to know where to start. So let's first look at how it can transform the business, and then we'll explore the challenges together. Now, like I said a couple slides ago, moving to the cloud is most commonly about better business agility and better scalability. Now, hopefully it's clear why that happens with cloud. It's a different model. So your developers are able to select the resources or the products and services in cloud that best suit their application. And there is zero wait time for procurement to make the approvals. Now, on top of that, in cloud, you only pay for what you use. So your tech teams can focus more on value creation, really building the best possible applications for the business. They don't have to think about maintaining a data center and maintaining that overhead and HVAC. Now, for the second benefit or goal here, many companies welcome that change to OpEx away from CapEx as a way to reduce costs or at least to reduce cash flow. But ultimately, the goal of a cloud migration is really this third one here. The goal of all this agility and flexibility and changing cost models is about innovation. It's about serving the business needs and the customers that you serve. So when teams are able to focus more on value creation, you can focus on innovation and you can focus on serving your users or your customers. Now, in order to do this, IT needs to be proactive, which is another theme that we've heard today, right? IT needs to enable the rest of the business, but also provide guidance so that it's very clear how you are going to change, how you are going to migrate, and ultimately take advantage of all of these different benefits. Now, every migration is going to come with risks or challenges, right? It's very common to see cost overrun or some sort of change to the architecture, some sort of change to the operations, right? And let's examine those challenges together to understand what we're facing as we plan this migration. We need to first recognize that every migration will be unique to your business. You can't just take a migration template and copy paste it over to your own organization. Instead, the IT org needs to look at your current data center infrastructure, map out the lifetime of your existing hardware, look at the leases that are left on your remaining data centers, and importantly, look at business demand for your applications. That data will allow you to create a migration plan that makes sense for your organization. Now, most of you probably work in orgs that have hundreds or thousands of applications, so this is going to become a huge data-driven task. Now, the next challenge here is that you're going to start operating with two different cost models. You have your fixed cost from the data center, and then you're going to have an OpEx cost, a monthly invoice from your cloud vendor. Now, that's going to create challenges for your finance team because they have two different cost models. But there's another challenge they're going to face too, and that's visibility to the cost. What's great about cloud is that you've given lots of flexibility to your developers to make their own choices, to build the best possible applications. But those choices are going to come with cost implications. And there are thousands of different permutations from the cloud vendor to build that application. So what happens in a cloud model is your finance team loses real-time visibility. It's not a fixed cost. Something's happening in real time in cloud, and the finance team doesn't know what's happening until the end of the month when they get an invoice. That model will not work in cloud. They will need that information faster. They will need the information of what's happening in on-prem and cloud so they can truly make a comparison. And they'll need to be able to measure the business value of those applications, no matter where they're hosted. Now, the final challenge we should discuss here is the dynamic nature of a migration. Your business is dynamic, which means your applications are dynamic, which means your migration is going to be dynamic. There are always going to be changes in a cloud migration. So you do need to have a plan, and that plan needs to consider business demand. But as your business changes, you need to be able to adjust and be flexible on the fly to update it. So if you want to migrate to the cloud successfully, you really need a cloud smart approach. And what that means is really look at the workloads that you need to migrate and prioritize the ones that provide the maximum benefit to the business at the minimum effort and cost. So you need clear migration planning that helps you see your on-prem spend and what it does for the business. You need a clear and dynamic migration plan. And then once it's in cloud, you will also need good financial management principles. Now we're going to talk through all of those together, and I'm going to walk you through some best practices for the migration. In the meantime, if you've encountered these challenges or other challenges in the migration, feel free to put them in the question and answer. While you're typing those and putting those in, I'm going to start with best practices around creating a migration plan. So this migration plan will happen before you have moved anything into the cloud, right? You need to be prepared and you need to understand what you have in order to determine what to migrate and when to migrate it. So you're going to assess your current infrastructure. Look at the lifetime of your existing hardware, because much of that infrastructure may have years of life left. And that means that it's going to be on your financial books for years to come as it depreciates. See if you can find another use for that hardware. If you're migrating an application out of the data center and into the cloud, can you repurpose those servers and those databases to support another application that is still in the cloud that might have increased demand before it migrates, right? Take advantage of the things that you've already got and find new uses for them. Now, remember, as your net new applications are born in the cloud and as you migrate out, it is still very normal for your data center spend to increase, even for a few years during your cloud migration. And that's because you will have business applications in your data center that are growing as your demand and as your usage grows. Now, you'll need to look at these existing applications to map out migration waves. And it is extremely tempting to just take the easiest applications and migrate them over just to say, hey, I've done this. We've moved 5 applications this month. Fantastic. That is sometimes a good decision, but you have to be so strategic about it. So what you really want to do is think about the right migration approach for each application, which might be rehosting, so lift and shift it into the cloud. But there are so many other ways to migrate. So examine if there is a different way to do it. Do you want to containerize your workloads? Do you want to move them into microservices? Do you want to explore some of the platform as a service or software as a service options out there, which might mean less overhead to maintain, and maybe you don't have to pay for certain licenses anymore? And then make sure you still use that application in the first place. It might be time to retire applications if you have duplicates across the org that aren't really providing value. So you want to really think about this as an application rationalization exercise. And that type of exercise is a best practice for technology business management. But a cloud migration in particular is this amazing opportunity to take a step back, look at all of your applications and really be strategic as you assess the value of all of them. Now, again, you probably have thousands of applications to assess and to migrate. So this becomes a big data problem. And that means that you are going to need big data platforms to support you. Spreadsheets are not going to be dynamic enough to update your migration plan. Spreadsheets are going to break if you're trying to connect every application to a business value. And on top of that, you really want to think about how to compare your on-prem and your cloud costs, because you can't just compare server costs and labor costs. They are different pricing models, and the labor is baked into cloud, whereas it's separate for data center. So instead of trying to do a perfect apples to apples comparison on each server, level up your comparison. Look, instead of looking at infrastructure, look at the applications the infrastructure serves, because that will create a common language across your on-prem and your cloud. It will allow you to have a more insightful conversation with business owners, and it will allow you to be more strategic about picking applications to migrate that present the best possible value. Now, all of that is about creating a migration plan. Now let's talk about what happens as things move into the cloud and what you'll need to consider. Now, first of all, you're going to need to adjust that migration plan. That might be because the application takes longer to re-architect. Maybe your business application becomes very popular. You have all these customers using your application and you need to scale up, right? These things happen, it's natural. And you need a plan that you can update as the business updates as well. You will also have these 2 different types of cost to manage, like we were talking about. So your finance team keeps tracking CapEx and depreciation, but now they're going to get monthly invoices from the cloud vendor. Now, your finance team is going to need access to both sets of cost data And with the OpEx and the monthly invoice, they need it faster. They need it in real time because things can change so quickly in cloud. And again, just like with your migration plan, you don't just want to look at the cost or the invoice. You want to level it up to a business level, an application or a service level, so that as you're measuring the value of your cloud investments, you're doing it in a way that makes sense for the business. Okay, final step of your cloud journey is once you have significant spend in cloud, once you are scaled in cloud, you're not done. You don't just lift it and shift it or re-architect it and walk away. Cloud is a continuous process. There will always be new services and new applications and new demands on the business. And what you'll need to do is start adopting cloud financial management principles to use these resources effectively. Now, cloud vendors always tell you, you only pay for what you use, but in reality, you pay for whatever is running in cloud, whether or not you use it. And cloud is dynamic. There are so many different options. We've talked about this decentralized model where each team effectively acts like their own procurement team. So you will need to adopt best practices to use those resources effectively. And this extends out of infrastructure as a service into software as a service, right? We saw, especially during COVID, so many businesses turned to SaaS options because they were agile and flexible. They met business needs. They were easy to set up without going on site. And as a result, IT finance now needs to consider SaaS usage and the value that it provides. Right? Oftentimes SaaS was procured outside of the IT department. So you had this business unit buying their own SaaS and this other one buying their own SaaS. IT doesn't need to be a bottleneck here, but IT and IT finance do need clear visibility to who is spending what across the business to make sure that they're supporting business needs, but also being as effective and efficient as possible. Now, cloud financial management is variable. It is a new dynamic for the business. And to do it well, you'll need to adopt a new operating model, and that's called FinOps. Now, FinOps, if you're not familiar with it, it's a practice that brings together IT and business and finance leaders to take advantage of the variable cost models of cloud and really optimize cloud for speed and cost and quality. Now, to do that, you need real-time visibility to your spend and collaboration across the organization. But remember, FinOps is ultimately not about saving money. It's really about making money, because that's ultimately why you move to the cloud in the first place. You want that agility and you want the opportunity to innovate and support your business. Now, I want to leave you today with an example of what a successful cloud migration looks like. Red Ventures, it's an American media company, and they connect consumers to different brands in education and health and financial services. They have 3,000 employees, and they're based in North Carolina in the US. Now, Red Ventures is a digital company, so all of their tech directly connects to the bottom line. And they were really struggling to get clear cost visibility because they're a very decentralized organization. But on top of that, they chose to migrate to cloud because it presented better agility options. So all of a sudden, they struggled with visibility, but they needed a migration plan, and they needed to manage their cloud spend. So Red Ventures chose to partner with Apptio to get clear cost visibility into spend across the entire organization and really bring in insights about their data that were way too complex for a spreadsheet. And leveraging Apptio's cloudability platform, they were able to allocate 92% of their cloud cost in 3 months. And that visibility meant that teams could start optimizing. So they would turn off things that they weren't actually using, and the central finance team was able to purchase reserved instances. So the point of this story is to show you that having that common platform for the business, it allows everybody to speak the same language around cloud. And this is going to help inform your migration decisions and facilitate collaboration across the org. And it allows you to adapt quickly, which means you can take advantage of things like better agility, which was really the whole point for Red Ventures and for a lot of you, I'm sure, to migrate over to the cloud. So I'll leave you with a final thought before I wrap up today, which is that a cloud migration is a unique opportunity to bring stakeholders across the business together and really plan for your future as an organization. But to achieve those benefits, you will need clear cost of visibility across your tech stack. You'll need a strategic approach to the migration and strong cloud financial management practices. Thank you everyone for joining. If you'd like to learn more about Cloudability and how we help our customers manage cloud costs, please visit our booth. But for now, I will give my time back to our host.